Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your Friday night pint. Looking back at the week that was at Old Trafford and obviously the weekend ahead, obviously away at Nottingham Forest, which is a Monday morning kickoff here in Sydney, Sunday afternoon in the UK. Now, we did our match review this morning, unfortunately, after the disappointing disappointing draw against Sevilla. Do appreciate everyone joining us for that. But I thought in terms of, okay, it is night time, we'll sort of grab a drink and a little bit of therapy in regards to the dust has settled, but it's still not a pretty picture of what did happen against Sevilla. And obviously the fallout in regards to injuries. And Erik ten Hag has had his press conference and given somewhat of an update. So we'll touch on all things Erik ten Hag and sort of injury crisis and sort of moving forward for Manchester United. But Vin, after this morning's disappointment, it was a tough one to take. Like, obviously, we've had far worse results and far worse performances this season. But this one sort of progressively got worse as the day went on. 2-2 draw in European competition. You think, okay, it is what it is. Could be better, but it's not a disaster. But the injury, sort of suspensions, Bruno's suspended. You're looking at next week. You're looking at Sevilla's form. Suddenly, it does feel a bit of one of the sort of not the worst result of the season, but you could make a case.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me, Tom. It's kind of what I would say. It's the gift that keeps on giving, but it's the inverse, where it's the gift that you don't want to keep. The first thing that was hard to take was giving up a 2-goal lead in the last 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, we have conceded equalizers and winners. Of course, we have scored them. Everyone remembers those, but we have conceded a lot of goals. In the last moment, we have given up points, but against a European opposition, especially one from Spain, and even though we have beaten two very well-placed Spanish teams as compared to Sevilla, it's always been tough to beat Sevilla at home, and we were kind of confident because of the form Sevilla is currently going through, and with the form we had at Old Trafford. It does feel like a loss, but yeah, and then pile on with the suspensions, pile on with the injuries, and now I'm not sure if we can even come up with a proper squad for our next Premier League game.
Well, we'll touch on that towards the end in regards to a preview, but we will go through sort of the elephant in the room is the Lisandro Martinez injuries. Obviously, Rashford's injured, Varane's injured, Shaw and McTominay potentially back. So there's all these injuries across the board. We're looking at Lisandro Martinez and what that means, and we'll touch on what Erik ten Hag says. But both Georges are in the live chat. Do appreciate you joining us, guys, on your Friday night. Do get any questions or topics in, any off-topic stuff, feel free, and we'll sort of get chatting about whatever. But Lisandro Martinez, Vin, I think all of us said as soon as he went down, Achilles. He's done his Achilles. Who knows what's going to happen? Erik ten Hag, he didn't do it in the press conference. In the press conference, he was very coy, saying, "No, I have no information. I think I know what it is, but I can't I'm not a doctor. I'll wait for the medical staff to sort of confirm that. Then you'll be the first to know." He obviously has a very strong inclination of what it is. There was rumours coming out last night that ten Hag had said, and I didn't see this physically from him, but ten Hag confirmed that it wasn't an Achilles injury. Now, when you do break it down, here we are, all doctors. We'll put it in slow motion. Where did he grab? How did he go down? My first reaction is Achilles, but then if you slow it down, he actually grabs the side of his foot, which you think, well, maybe it's a bone in his foot. A lot of people said, obviously, David Beckham and Wayne Rooney's obviously famous metatarsal, because of so quite brittle bones, which are quite easy to break in the foot. And that is, yeah, maybe on the side of the foot, but ultimately the first reaction was towards the back. So again, who knows? But just your first reaction in regards, we'll get into sort of the ramifications of not having Lisandro Martinez, what that means for the team. But just your first reaction, because my first one is he's out for the season. Now, look, he might be back in 2 weeks' time fighting fit. But just your gut feeling, what do you think has happened?
So Martinez, everyone knows he's the butcher, right? Like, he is someone who won't give up no matter if he's injured or not. We have seen those games where he has a Band-Aid on over his eyes, over his head, and he's playing the whole 90 minutes. And for him to just give up, it does kind of show that it might be a very serious one. And he knows right away, okay, either the season is done or either the game is done. And by judging his reaction and by judging how he actually was on the sidelines and then going back, he was in tears. And I think Laurie Whitwell did mention that he was sobbing uncontrollably. Of course, if he's injured, it might be pain or it might be the realization that he's not going to be around playing for the team. We know how passionate he is towards the club and towards the manager, and also for his fans. So it can be anything. But Yeah, when I saw it, I kind of knew that, okay, yeah, it's a serious one. Otherwise, yeah, he's not someone who can just like who's gonna go and play injured unnecessarily, and that too at a very crucial point in time. We were literally we had conceded a goal, and we were under serious pressure from Sevilla at that time.
We'll get into the specifics of sort of who replaces Lisandro Martinez and how the back four shapes up on the weekend, and obviously in the next leg in Spain in a week's time. But Eric Ten Hag came in for some criticism, and look, he's up for sort of the criticism is warranted. He's the Manchester United manager. If he does something wrong, obviously we have a right to criticise him. Obviously, got a lot of criticism in regards to substitutions. I stand by it. Like in hindsight, I agree with the criticism, but I stand by the fact if Terrell Malacia, not to blame the defeat on him, but if he sort of deals with that cross and puts it out, we're saying it's great game management. And it was the right subs in terms of taking Bruno off. Obviously, in hindsight, that's very easy. Obviously, the substitutions look like they haven't worked. In regards to sort of workload Eric Ten Hag has placed on these players, that is one criticism I think a lot of us fans have had towards Eric Ten Hag, probably the one criticism. This is one of those things, this could happen in training, this injury. But if you're a scientist or a doctor or a cynic, you could actually say, well, if Lisandro Martinez wasn't playing as much, maybe he wouldn't have that strain on the body and that injury wouldn't have occurred. In my opinion, it's just an unlucky thing that it could happen at training next week. It could happen to Aaron Wan-Bissaka at training tomorrow morning. That could happen, fingers crossed. Obviously, that isn't the case. But would you put any of this on Eric Ten Hag's sort of constant strong selection in regards to what we talked about Bruno Fernandes and running him into the ground? And obviously you go through our sort of current injury record and you think, yeah, could it be managed earlier? Sort of not so much today, but could it have been managed against Reading in the FA Cup, against Charlton in the League Cup, teams like that? So ultimately this Lisandro Martinez injury, do you think it's just a freak incident, or do you think there could be something in, if you put a scientific hat on, something in the workload Eric Ten Hag has placed on his key men?
No, I think it's just bad coincidence is what I would say. Of course, we have criticized, or I have criticized in the past, that he shouldn't have picked a very strong selection in some of those games, which we can call as a dead rubber, especially the second leg against certain teams where we had already put the tie to bed in the first leg. He could have rested some of those players. But when I compare Lisandro Martinez against some of the players in the squad, he did start a lot of games. He did play a lot of games, but when you chalk up all those numbers, I'm quite sure he did miss a lot of games for us because of the World Cup, because of the after party in the World Cup, and also there were certain games that he missed because he was just not ready. So say again, like we can tweak and twist the narrative in the way we want. We can, if we want to criticize the manager, of course we'll go ahead and criticize them. But I think when we take a step back and we, like, with a calm mind, if we look at it, this injury could have happened anywhere. As you said, this injury or any injury to any player can happen anywhere. It's just bad coincidence. It had to happen at a very turning point for the club, for especially the season we are having. Again, running down some of the players, by playing them consistently, there is a reason why that's being done, because it's just he probably is not really confident with the remaining players that's on the bench. It's not that you can just be confident because you've got numbers on the bench, there is no reason for you to play them instead of the first team squad or first team availability. That's one of the main reasons why the kids are also not getting a look in. It's not that the kids are bad or if the kids can't cope up with the pressure that's going to come up. It's just for the job to be done right now. He has pure confidence on the team that's playing for him week in and week out, day in and day out. And I won't say he's still figuring out who's doing what, but he's still in his first season, and he doesn't have much availability. He doesn't have much riches when it comes to the talents on the bench, and especially the firepower that he can use when we are at such a turning point of the season, or squeaky bum time, as we normally say. So I kind of disagree when people say, like, yeah, he should be criticized because he's playing someone day in and day out. That's the main reason it's causing all these players injuries and whatnot. I mean, I know I'll be under huge fire. This guy played really well last night, but look at Anthony Martial. He didn't play much for us, but he was still getting injured. So where is that narrative coming from? So I really don't buy it when people say it's because of your playing so much that's why you're getting injured. This can happen.
Well, I want to get into a situation around the sort of the collective injury, and look, you can tie suspensions into there and form everything sort of moving forward in the next couple of games. But George, I don't like the 5 subs rule. Now, look, football evolves and football changes. In 5 years' time, I might think 5 subs isn't enough. At the moment, as things stand, I think it's way too many. But a manager, I do feel sometimes now that they have that option, they do try and utilise it a little bit too much. Now, Erik ten Hag knows more about football than me. Okay, maybe there are sort of valid reasons as to why he does it. I don't like using too many subs. I think it changes too many things. Just my opinion. But my opinion will very likely change as football evolves in 5 years' time, and this is the norm. I'm sure as people had the same thing when substitutes went from 1 substitute to 2. Then it was 3 for probably about, 20 or 30 years. So the football does change. But did we really need to replace Martial, Sancho, etc., playing with 10 and just playing with fire? Maybe it's a lesson to keep 1 spare in case of injury. I think we need Jose Mourinho in charge. I'm sure he'll be throwing players down with head injuries, suspected head injuries, to gain that extra sub late on in games. But yeah, that is something Erik ten Hag will have to learn from. But I think I was listening to, sorry to interrupt him, but I was listening to Luke Chadwick, who I've had on the podcast before, very fortunate. Might be able to get him on again soon. I was chatting to him a couple of weeks ago, but he did a video the other day, and he was talking about his Champions League debut. It was a nothing game away in Sturm Graz, and he came on in the 90th minute or whatever, and he had if Manchester United won a Champions League match, this is back in what that would have been. That would have been around the year 2000, maybe 2001. He came off the bench for 2 minutes. It didn't matter if you came on for 2 minutes or started the match. If you were involved and Manchester United won a Champions League match back then, he had a £10,000 bonus. That was back in the year 2000. So you can imagine what these players, like an Anthony Elanga, is going to come on and get in winning a Europa League match. Anthony Elanga off the bench might get 30, 40 grand for winning a Europa League match off the bench. So I'm just thinking there is pressure from the manager to see these players, okay, I've got to keep them happy. Okay, he's not going to play on the weekend. He's not going to be involved. Yeah, I'll keep him on my side. He come on, have 20 minutes and you'll get another 50 grand in your bank. But I think that's part of management. But I think ultimately, forget management, just look at football results. I think that does change things in regards to bringing too many players on. That might not play a factor with Erik ten Hag. It might not influence his decision-making. I just think as a human, it subconsciously would. I remember when Michael Carrick was in charge, we had a corner in the 96th minute against Villarreal. He brought one matter on when the referee had the whistle in his mouth. I'm sure that was his friend, just have a few extra pounds in your bank account next week. So I think that does subconsciously play a part. But that is what separates the best managers. And I'm not saying Erik ten Hag isn't one of the best managers, but that is something he will have to sort of get control of in regards to, I do think. But I think across the board, I see other managers, say Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, whoever, Conte, Graham Potter, whoever, across all the big clubs in the Premier League. I always see every couple of weeks they suddenly throw a quadruple sub in or a triple sub. And I just think, again, they know more about it than me, so maybe there's a valid reason and they're completely correct in doing so. When I see it, I just think, no, that's not the right sub. I wouldn't do that.
The substitutes, it's actually a very, very interesting topic, right? Because there is a pro and there is a con, right? For instance, when Ten Hag made these substitutes in the past games and we ended up winning it, we were like, oh, that's a Ten Hag masterclass in getting these substitutes on, and we won the game. If we wouldn't have conceded these 2 goals or even one of those goals, we wouldn't be talking about the substitutes today for sure. But let's take a look at the substitutes he made, right? One is Rafael Varane, who was kind of nearly injured, and that's why Maguire came off in the second half.
Well, Varane is injured. He misses this week.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. So we can't question that particular substitution. The next one is I think it was Bruno Fernandes, who was again, He's always on that tightrope of, if he gets a red instead of a yellow, he's going to miss more games in the Europa League or in any other league. Like, I'm not sure how it works. So that's one of the other reasons. Anthony, yes, he was close to being sent off, especially if there was another, let's say, another bust-up between himself and Acuna. I'm quite sure one of those players would have been red-carded for sure. The other 2 subs, I think what we used was Anthony Martial and I think Jadon Sancho, isn't it? So
Weghorst and Elanga came on for them.
Yeah. So Anthony Martial is like, I just got back from listening to Ten Hag's conference where he was questioned about the same thing, and the response he gave kind of fits the whole the whole point, right? Right now, Anthony Martial isn't really fit to play the 90 minutes, right? And right now we need attackers up front. We are already down with Garnacho. We are already down with Rashford. We can't really depend on Weghorst. We can't really depend on Jadon Sancho, who's not really having a great season. So to protect, of course, Anthony Martial had to come off. The one little thing where I would be really not keen is the Jadon Sancho one, especially a guy who hasn't really played to his expectations this whole season, especially going through his personal issues and whatnot. I would have seen him stick around, but also when I look at from the big picture what he had contributed to the game, you shouldn't be keeping a player on field just because he's not injured or he needs some game time. He needs to contribute something to the game as well. So there you go. I just dissected all 5 substitutes.
I think Eric Ten Hag made a great point in the press conference. I forget what the question was, but he answered it along the lines of, in terms it was around sort of trust in players. Like, how do you sort of keep them happy? How do you give them a chance if they're sort of not playing? How do they perform? And he was saying, he didn't say football's not fair, but he pretty much said football's not fair. You might not play for 6 weeks. If I need you for 2 minutes, you're going to have to perform in those 2 minutes. That's not fair, but that is life as a Manchester United player. You're going to have to deal with that. You can only succeed if you can contribute. If you've been out for 8 weeks and haven't played, if I need you for a game, that game you're going to have to perform. If you don't perform, you're not a Manchester United player. And I think, look, that isn't fair, but that is life as a Manchester United player and as a professional footballer. But I think his honesty and sort of sternness in answering that question, I thought was brilliant to see. But you mentioned some names there, Vin. It's sort of a segue into the next topic in regards to, look at the last 2 games. Is it 2 clean sheets, 2 wins? Is it a feel-good factor? We're going into this Europa League quarter-final at 2-0 up. Everything's rosy. Everything's sort of looking good for the next couple of weeks. Suddenly, 5 minutes before full-time, disaster strikes. Martinez looks a serious injury and we concede 2 goals. And now you'd probably argue that Sevilla are favourites to progress in the Cup. Ultimately, now you look at the situation around those results, or that result, but also the injuries, and not just injuries, but suspensions as well. And I'm starting to think it looked very rosy up until 5 minutes before full-time. Now you look at the situation. Now you look at Sevilla, probably favourite. In my opinion, they'd be favourites to go through. Now, so I'm confident United can go through, but if I'm a betting man, I think Sevilla might be slight favourites. But then also you're looking at Bruno Fernandes is suspended for the second leg. Varane and Martinez won't be available for the second leg. You got Marcus Rashford, who knows what's going to happen there, if he's going to be available or not, or fit. Christian Eriksen and Casemiro still sort of coming back to fitness, a little bit off the pace. You look at the next FA Cup match, if Varane and Martinez are out, obviously through injury, Harry Maguire, or whatever we think of him, he's suspended for the FA Cup semi-final. So I'm just thinking, you go through all these injured in a week's time, who knows? So I'm just thinking all these things in terms of, we looked very rosy at half-time, 2-0 up and off the back of two good victories with clean sheets. Ultimately now, off the back of these injuries and the position that result has put us in, it's not rosy. I think we're not in a crisis. I don't think the season's over. Far from. I'm still very confident we can kick on and sort of finish well. But my God, we are in a little bit of trouble, in my opinion.
Especially the defense. We are in a bit of a trouble. And of course, if Martial stays fit and if Sancho comes up with the goods, and again, we are all talking about ifs and buts over here. That's not the way we should be rolling. But Axel Tuanzebe, is he still at United, or is he giving?
I have
no idea
where he is.
But yeah, thanks, George. Thanks for reminding me that guy can do a really great job.
Could we register Phil Jones?
Yeah,
I'm not taking the piss. I don't know what the situation is in regards to sort of registering players who are contracted.
Yeah, not to deviate. And I don't think so. Like, if it was a PlayStation game or something, you can recall the players back from loan anytime we want. Yeah. I'm not sure how it works in real time, if it is even possible. But I think it's a question mark in the defense. But I think if we look back and see what Casemiro has done with Real Madrid sometimes in the past, was he had played in defense as well. Not really his really great positioning over there, but I think if there is a need, especially with the FA Cup game where Maguire is out, Varane is out, and Martinez is out, and all we have is Lindelof, Luke Shaw if he's back fit, Dalot, and Malacia. So
I want to throw a question to you and tie this into the Nottingham Forest preview, and obviously looking ahead to Brighton. Let's draw up a hypothetical. Harry Maguire, okay, Brighton semi-final. Harry Maguire's out, suspended. You have Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane not available. Luke Shaw, from Eric Ten Hag's press conference, looks like he could be available for the matchday squad against Nottingham Forest. So fingers crossed Luke Shaw is available. You would say quick maths would suggest Victor Lindelof and Luke Shaw would play at centre-back. That's obviously not first choice, but you think, okay, Victor Lindelof plays well and Luke Shaw play well, we're fine there. They're not ideal, but there's a situation where we win the game. If Luke Shaw isn't available, what do you do at centre-back? My guess would be you'd have to play Casemiro there.
Yeah, we have to play. I mean, I would rather play Casemiro in the back than Harry Maguire. Sorry. But I mean, of course, he's suspended. But even for the league games, I would rather play him there because our midfield is slowly getting back to its strength. Like, for instance, Eriksen is back. Fred is there. McTominay might be also making the team sheet, or at least in the squad.
Well, you mentioned McTominay there, but both Georges say Casemiro, and I think we both just said Casemiro. But is there anything different? Maybe Eric Ten Hag sees the importance of him in midfield. I think, like Luke Shaw, and I'm not suggesting this is my preference, but like Luke Shaw came in from left back, would you say, I don't think this is the right decision, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka coming in as centre back or a different makeshift, like, I'm not saying Terrell Malacia come in or anything like that, but is there a situation where something we're not thinking of, a Wan-Bissaka, a Diogo Dalot? Because none of us predicted Luke Shaw to come in and play. And again, I'm not saying Dalot or Wan-Bissaka should happen or it will happen, but I'm just thinking we didn't think Luke Shaw was going to happen.
Yeah, Luke Shaw, again, it's if he starts against Forest, if we are talking about Forest, it's going to be his first game, and Forest away is not going to be an easy game as well, especially with their stadium, which is really kind of small. But yeah, I agree with George over there. I would not play Wan-Bissaka at centre back, but as we will be playing Brighton, who is a more superior team than Nottingham Forest, I would rather try it out by playing Casemiro in the centre back if I had the option to do it, to test him out. How
are we in a stage where we can experiment though, like in regards to, okay, let's see how this goes for the next game, or is it we in sort of cup finals every week now?
I would rather experiment with Casemiro at the back, but then taking a chance or gambling with what's his name, Harry Maguire at the back. I'm sorry. Yeah, he kind of did an okay job, but yeah, he could have.
What's more important? What's more important in terms of preparing for the next game, or getting 3 points in the game right in front of you?
I think it should. That's a very tough question. With the form we are in league, and Nottingham Forest away should be defensively, it shouldn't be a very challenging game for us, especially when they haven't scored really much goals at home or even at a grand total. They are also under pressure. I would say the 3 points is the must, but also we need to also be a less pragmatic on how we are going to approach in a game-by-game manner rather than, plan it a bit up front and then identify if that's the right way to go. I was even thinking of playing 5 at the back or even 3 at the back against Sevilla. That was something that was coming into my mind when I know, okay, fine. If that's the case, then
I don't think I've ever seen Eric Ten Hag go to a 3 at the back. Maybe he has, but
he played 5 at the back. He kind of started with 5 at the back in some of the game he did. I remember.
Was it 5 at the back, or was like Casemiro dropping in and our fullbacks just playing really high?
With Luke Shaw playing centre back. Yeah, he hasn't.
Oh, I'm sure. Obviously, very flexible, and there's tactical demands he places, and that sometimes it would look like we play 3 at the back, especially when our number 6 drops in and the fullbacks can push forward. Maybe it looks like a 3 at the back, and maybe that's what Eric Ten Hag's thinking. But George is also bringing up Brandon Williams, and I think Brandon Williams might be in the same category as Phil Jones in regards. Well, Brandon Williams did come on for one game, I think, off the bench, so he is registered. But he's not going to play. He says he playing Shaw at centre back with Williams at left back. Terrell Malacia is going to play, and I think I like Brandon Williams. Terrell Malacia is going to play over Brandon Williams, and I think that's the correct decision. I don't see a situation where, because as I said, these games now, okay, Nottingham Forest away, it is what it is. My God, it's important. It's not an FA Cup final, but it's the second best into it. Like, these are important games now. It's not just where I think you're right in saying, okay, I'll experiment with Casemiro, so give him 90 minutes at centre back, so he's ready for the cup. He's ready for the semi-final. stuff the semi-final. We got the huge 3 points. This is an FA Cup final for us against Nottingham Forest. If we need this top four, because at the moment we're not going through in the Europa League, so our European competition is the top four in the Premier League. So I'm just seeing the importance of these games now. They're huge. I think we're all looking at relegation battles or the title race. Who's going to drop points first, City or Arsenal? We have to look in our own backyard. We're in a race now. Now, obviously, we're very well placed in regards to us and Newcastle. If you're betting, you'd say we're maybe very strong favourites to make the top four. But you slip up once or twice. You saw today in regards to the way the confidence went after that first goal went in. Suddenly, if you drop a point and the team behind you in Tottenham or Liverpool win, that knocks your confidence. So these games, Nottingham Forest this week, is look, as I said, it's not a final, but my God, it's the next best thing.
These games are important. That's one of the main reasons for me to not play Maguire over there, because the moment he starts over there, everyone knows he is going to be targeted, and especially as George had mentioned, he's going to be against Chris Wood. And Chris Wood, who has...
Is Chris Wood at Forest? I saw that comment. Is he at Forest?
He moved from Newcastle to Forest.
I knew he was at Newcastle, didn't I? Didn't know he went to Forest.
Yeah. So the whole season he didn't score much, and then I wouldn't be crazy if Chris Wood puts 2 or 3 against us. I hope not, but he will be easily targeted because Slabhead is there. He's 6'4" or something, but he can't really play when the ball comes at his expense. So
Brighton semi-final is a way up this one for me. Harry Maguire's unavailable. Luke Shaw is out injured. He's not available. Casemiro at centre-back, or do you keep Casemiro in midfield and play Scott McTominay, who's obviously featured for Scotland at centre-back?
I kind of like Scotty at centre-back as well. He.
But then again, throwing him in a semi-final of the FA Cup against Brighton, that's obviously not what you want.
It's going to be a two-legged. Or is it just
FA Cup? This League Cup is 2 legs.
This is in Wembley, isn't it?
No, it's Wembley. Well, the semi-finals are at Wembley. Obviously, it used to be at Villa Park and Old Trafford, but this is one-legged tie in the FA Cup, but at Wembley.
Oh, yeah. So, I would in that case, I would probably put Scott McTominay there. Hear me out. The main reason being the midfield of Brighton is a workhorse, right? And we need much as pulling power in the midfield than we need anywhere in the world. Of course, they got Danny Welbeck up front. They got Mitoma coming from the wings, but their midfield is much powerful than their attack, and we need to. And Casemiro over there, or Fred, even Fred, we are forgetting him.
Forgotten man.
If he does that wonderful job of man marking McAllister in that whole game, you never know. We might have a really good scoreline at our hands. But it's
strong links with McAllister. I call him McAllister. Like, he's not Argentinian, and I really like the player.
Yeah, he's not.
How he plays for Argentina. As won a World Cup, I thought he was brilliant in the World Cup final. But it does look like he's pretty much the club, well, not confirmed, but pretty much alluded to the confirmation that he will be leaving Brighton at the end of the season. You got your pick of clubs. Just a hunch with no information. I haven't read any stories or anything. Just a hunch. I have a feeling he's United bound. And whether I remember when Christian Eriksen arrived, we thought, okay, he's Bruno Fernandes's backup. He obviously has turned out anything but Bruno Fernandes's backup. When I see McAllister and Bruno, I say, okay, he'll be Bruno's backup. Ultimately, if Ten Hag wants him, he might see him as something different. So I think he would be a good addition. Obviously, going to cost a lot of money. But again, just a hunch, no information. He might end up at Liverpool wearing the number 10 shirt there. Who knows? But I just have a feeling McAllister, I don't want to call him Scottish. He's not Argentinian for me. We'll play. And it's weirdly spelled, isn't it? It's like, it's Mac as in like its own word, and then Alistair as a second last name. So I've never seen him. Fair play to him. He's got a World Cup winners medal. I don't. But
I'll sign him for 55 million. Of course, if he had the money, 55 million for United.
What do you think he would cost? In the live chat, let us know what you think McAllister from Brighton would cost, because the player, I look at that type of play from Brighton coming to Manchester United, in my mind says 30, 40 million. I look at Brighton in terms of Premier League football and the Premier League sort of landscape. I think Brighton selling to Manchester United, they're probably thinking they can get 70.
Yeah, 70. Yeah, but hardly.
Somewhere
I don't think so. Yeah, it will be 70, but we'll end up paying more than that. How about that? That's how it works.
I think we would, because I think people get caught up in these transfer fees thinking. I still think Sabitzer would cost a lot more than what people think. But I know
Yeah.
Bayern may be forced out a little bit with his contract situation. I understand that may be a bit cheaper, but I think in our minds we say, okay, if Scott McTominay is £30 million, and look, no bigger fan of Scott McTominay than me, but if he's £30 million, if you're going to get a really top quality player, they're going to say, well, I'm double the players. So suddenly you're £60 million. I'm thinking that is what it's going to cost to bring in good players. That's a squad player over the next 5 or 6 years might be a 60, 70, 80 million pound player. Well, we don't want to accept that, but that's the way the football landscape is moving.
Yeah, I mean, like when people put a number on Sabitzer between 18 to 24 million, I'm like, in what world? Yeah, exactly. He would cost double. He'll cost 40 to 50.
I think it'd be around 40, 40 minimum.
Unless Bayern really wants to, take him off. But again, that was Nagelsmann. That was Bayern under Nagelsmann. Now it's Tuchel, so it's going to be different. It's really going to be different and difficult because we don't know what's Tuchel's plan is, and if he needs more legs in the midfield, probably it will be just a 6-month stint for Sabitzer at United, which I would hate because I really like seeing him.
It's a shame today where the whole talk is about Lisandro Martinez and Eric Ten Hag substitutions. Marcel Sabitzer scored 2 goals at Old Trafford in European football. I think we should be praising it, and obviously we have been praising him, full of praise for him. But that's where the focus should be, because at half-time I was thinking make sure we get a penalty and Bruno Fernandes should step aside to let Sabitzer score a hat-trick. And I was thinking that should have been the discussion, and we should be sort of full of praise for or sort of focusing on it. But it's almost forgotten because it was actually quite a... I wouldn't say easy finishes, but on his left-hand side, sometimes you can overthink those. You can get those wrong a little bit. So ultimately, he had a little bit of time to think, which sort of increases the difficulty. And 2 neat finishes, and ultimately very important finishes in regards to the scoreline. Now, if that doesn't happen, we're 2-0 down. So 2 very important goals, which could end up seeing us through.
More than the finishes, the runs he made and the intelligence to remain on side, which he also did a few weeks or a couple of weeks ago in the Premier League game when he made an assist to Rashford, and he's pretty much intelligent, and he stayed on side, and that was a well taken goal, especially the second one as well, because he had to take it pretty quickly. He couldn't keep the ball on his feet for a longer time. He just took it as soon as he received it. So it was a good finish, and I'm just happy for him. But I would have been more happier if he would have received the man of the match, and I'm not sure he did he?
I think it's hard when Man United lose or draw in terms that they try and sort of stay clear of those discussions and posts on social media. I think they did put it out, though, that Marcel Sabitzer did get it for this one. But a question to you, Vin, and people in the live chat answer this one as well. Fully fit, forget Christian Eriksen's just coming back from injury and maybe a little bit off the pace at the moment, but both fully fit. We have a Manchester Derby final in the FA Cup at Wembley at the end of the season. Everyone in midfield is fully fit. Casemiro plays, Bruno Fernandes plays. Sabitzer or Eriksen in that number 8 role, that other midfielder. Who do you think, or who do you think, and who would you prefer to sort of complete that midfield trio?
I would start with Eriksen and bring on Sabitzer after the 65-minute mark. That's the only way. And the game
on paper, I would tend to probably agree with that, but I think Sabitzer maybe has a little bit more of a goal threat. Now, Eriksen obviously can score goals, of course he can. Steve Gunn Eriksen. I'll probably start with Eriksen. I just think Sabitzer maybe just has that a little bit burst, a little bit more power. He can change something a little bit more than Eriksen. Eriksen might come and sort of dictate play a little bit more, and that could change the game. But I just think in regards to a specific moment of, let's say, a moment of brilliance, I think Sabitzer could bring that off the bench more so than Christian Eriksen. So that is where I would start with Eriksen. But in regards to their traits and what they bring football-wise to the team, I don't want to say they're identical players, but they are pretty similar.
They are pretty much elegant. Of course, when you look at Sabitzer and how he plays, you don't see or you don't have that aura of elegance around him. But when you see a Christian Eriksen or a Jan Mata or a David Silva, you see that, okay, there is elegance through and throughout. But Sabitzer is does look like a rough player, but kind of he does have his elegance in him. And the other great factor which I love within football was like they ghost into certain positions and certain holes inside the pitch when they open up the opposition, and when they create some spaces and then get into the spaces to receive the ball, and if they receive it just like this morning, they do strike up for a goal. So those are
So, I
some
mean,
of those.
he's a goal threat. He wants goals. You can see when he plays, he's when he gets the ball, he's always looking to shoot. Sometimes he always makes the right decision. Sometimes he'll pass instead of shoot, but it's always the first thing in his mind. Can I get a shot away? If I can't get a shot, okay, pass move. Can I get into the box to get the next ball so I can shoot? So with that intent in your mind to, okay, wherever the ball is, how can I score? Ultimately, that's a good sort of intent to have.
At RB Leipzig, he is normally called as a midfielder, but he was always playing anywhere. But I mean, he's versatile, but he was majorly playing between center attacking, or sometimes he was even started as a striker, if I'm not wrong, or as a false
I think he
nine.
wore number 9 again, just a shirt number.
Yeah.
But the 9 at Leipzig might be completely wrong. They might be having my names mixed up. But even I remember in terms of the graphs came out when he signed, in terms of how many games a season he started here or there. Even had it on the right and left hand side of sort of a front tree at times. Now, obviously, very fluid system that might sort of come inside and play in a more central position. But Sabitzer has been extremely well, in my opinion, and obviously is improving, which is all you want. Like many of our players, like David De Gea, whatever you think good enough or not good enough, he's trying to improve. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, good enough, not good enough, he's showing signs of improvement. Sabitzer came into sort of a very good midfield and sort of has worked his way into it now through injury or through form. That's up for debate. But all you can ask from these players. And a little bit disappointing today. But I think everyone throwing their toys out of the pram. I put it on Twitter, Vin, a little bit earlier after the match in regards to, I understand the frustration. I share the sort of the doom and gloom in regards to how bad it is, especially with the injury thing. But everyone's like, oh, we're out. And again, if I'm a betting man, I do think Sevilla may be slight favourites to go through. Okay, it wouldn't shock me if we do get knocked out in the second leg. However, we were 2-0 down to PSG. Well, one of the best. Okay, they weren't one of the best teams, but on paper, in terms of names, a brilliant team. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went 2 away goals, so this is when away goals counted. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went to Paris with McFred in midfield, McTominay, Fred, and Andreas Pereira, and we overturned the result. So I'm just thinking, if you're throwing in the towel at 2-2 against Sevilla, sort of wind your neck in and sort of stop throwing the toys out of the pram. We can go through in this game, and if Manchester United turn up and play well, we will go through. It's in our hands.
It's actually a good thing if people are losing their sensibilities and they are throwing their toys off the pram. Let them be, because it's okay if they want to assume that we are done. That's it. But the main reason why, I mean, like I as you said, as a betting man, your money might be on Sevilla, right? And most of ours are currently expecting Sevilla to go through and through. That might be because they play kind of dirty, and come on, Spanish teams at home, you know how boring they play. Sorry, guys, if anyone's a big fan. And how much of, Eric Ten Hag was talking about Newcastle doing a bit of time wasting. He must go ahead and see how it goes when they play Sevilla. I know I'm getting away from the topic, but over there, the good part is they have scrapped the away goals. It's more like starting the game 0-0. But some of the people who tweet about it on a daily basis, they don't know when was this new rule scrapped where there are no away goals anymore. So I think that's where one of the reasons a lot of knee-jerk reactions. I mean,
where do you think? Just in regards to that, where do you think sort of my sort of lack of confidence comes from? Is it Sevilla, the name, in regards to just look, they're out of this tie in 5 minutes because they're Sevilla. They get a result at Old Trafford because they are the Europa League kings. So is my lack of confidence in United just because we're away at Sevilla and Sevilla just win the Europa League? That's what they do, or is it the 2-2? Okay, we're playing away in Spain in terms of our record in Spain. Is it our injury record or injury sort of crisis at the moment in regards to they're going to be a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker? So I'm just thinking, is there a pinpoint sort of reason as to why many people would have Sevilla as favourites? Because let's say just on its day, Manchester United against Sevilla, take away the home ground advantage, away ground. We've been to the best team in Spain this season, performed very well, got a draw. We've beaten Real Sociedad. We've beaten Real Betis. I'm just thinking, well, quick math says we'll go and beat Sevilla. So I'm just thinking, where does my lack of confidence come from? Do you think?
So I personally am not confident. Why? Because of the injury crisis we have. I don't even know how are we going to put up 11 people plus 5 or 7 on the bench to come up with a respectable team to defend or probably win the tie. So that's where my confidence is currently a bit low, but probably when we see more faces like Luke Shaw, Scott McTominay, and even Rashford, if they start playing, or if their news of availability starts trickling down, then it might give us a boost. But most of them, yeah, Sevilla are kind of recognized as the Europa League champions. They should probably have one trophy in their cabinet all the time. Uh, but their current form this year has been shocking, has been in shambles, and that's what people are not looking at. They are looking at the past, which is good, but if we are looking at the past, you should also look at the past, the results we chalked up at PSG and whatnot. Um, but I think personally, it's just the injury crisis. You take that away, it's going to be a game that starts 0-0, home or away. It doesn't really matter. We have beaten teams away. We have beaten teams at home. So it really it's just
wouldn't
how you
shock you
look
this
at it.
one. It wouldn't shock you to see extra time and penalties, just in regards to the way our players have been run into the ground. Just wouldn't shock you that extra 30 minutes.
Yeah, the last thing we would need is going to be the first thing that's going to come up: 0-0 draw and a crazy extra time, 30 minutes, and probably a last minute winner by Sabitzer. You never know.
Fingers crossed we don't have to send David De Gea out against Spanish opposition in a penalty shootout again. Obviously against Villarreal, but I do see a situation where we do go to extra time and potentially penalties. And look, even if we're playing the Stockport under 12s, I'd still fancy them in a shootout against Manchester United. I'm just never confident in a penalty shootout. I'm sure a lot of fans are the same. But before we wrap up, Vin, is there anything else in regards to Eric Ten Hag's press conference we sort of touched on? Lissandro Martinez, the Nottingham Forest match, in regards to, just to wrap up in regards to the Forest match. We've done the back four in regards to so many sort of different intricacies we can look at. Okay, who's in, who's out. Just sort of that front three. Let's say Marcus Rashford won't start, whether he's back or not. Time will tell. I don't think he will, but let's say he's not starting. I think Anthony's been playing well. You throw him on the right-hand side. Martial, he's got that start now, I think, and a little bit of a rest at the end of the match. I think Martial starts again. Left-hand side, is there a curveball there, or Jadon Sancho keeps his spot?
Jadon Sancho probably can keep his spot, or probably give Anthony Elanga a run in over there. I'm not sure when was the last time he played for left wing, or when was the last time he even started a game for United?
That's what I mean. Do you see a situation? I'd say the importance of this match. I don't see. I see a situation before Elanga, and I'd argue that it's the correct thing, which he's coming back from injury. But if Garnacho's back, again, I don't know if Garnacho's back. I'm sure that'll come out in the embargoed section of the press conference. But I'd be starting Garnacho over Anthony Elanga. I just don't. But then ultimately, I'm not throwing Garnacho in off the back of an injury, saying give us 90 minutes to wait, not in a Forest. I think you do have to go Jadon Sancho. But I'm just thinking outside the box. Is there a situation where you could see, I don't know, Bruno Fernandes on the right and you push Anthony over to the left, and sort of maybe that changes the midfield? I'm not sure what's going to happen, because ultimately Eric Ten Hag sort of speaks about sort of deserving your spot and not just playing it just because of a name and just you need to fill a gap. You need to earn that spot. And Jadon said, I think he's playing well. I think the criticism is a little bit over the top, but ultimately he's not doing enough to sort of warrant a spot at the moment. He's in there because Marcus Rashford's injured, because Alejandro Garnacho's injured. If he was delivering those performances and those people were there, he wouldn't be playing. So I'm just thinking, could he be sort of so-called punished by Eric Ten Hag by being dropped? But if you drop him, how do you sort of juggle that front three?
I think one of the main reasons he is, I wouldn't call that as a punishment, is because after what he has gone through earlier this season, of course, that should not be the prime criteria for picking a player in the squad. But after what he has gone through earlier this season, taking the one thing that he loves doing away from him right away is going to put him in a really a very complicated mess right now.
Is he loving playing football, though, at the moment? I'm not saying he's not, but...
So he is loving playing football. I think people at this stage, at this kind of evolution, how they are right now, I think people have understood that if you're not happy playing football, no matter which club or where you are, you shouldn't be playing at all. And after the
I
third,
just mean in regards to confidence, like because he's not confident, does he maybe need? He probably doesn't because he's had so long out. But sometimes when you're not confident, like maybe you don't want to play. Maybe you do want to come off the bench when the game's a little bit stretched. Maybe look at, I don't want to say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but you could argue performed better off the bench. He performed very well when he played from the start, but there's always the perception that he's better off the bench. I'm not saying Jadon Sancho, especially a £70 million player, shouldn't be better off the bench. We should be relying on them to start. But just in regards to his confidence, maybe there is a case where he's kind of feeling it a little bit. And again, you go back to what Erik ten Hag says: if he can't deal with that, he's not a Manchester United player.
Exactly, because right now is the time when the team or when the club needs you. We don't want you to shy away from the challenges or run away from holding possession of the ball or taking challenges to the opposition. Right now is the time where you become the poster boy of the squeaky bum time. Take the challenge. There is a depleted resource in the attacking side of the pitch. There is not much creativity, or no one is putting the end of creative passes to the bed. So be that player, use that as motivation, and finish up the job. Start performing. I know he has been just a passenger for some of the recent games, but you never know. Probably we have given him 300 minutes, so probably he needs 390 minutes to get the ball rolling. So I would not push him to the bench right now. But even if I'm not going to start him on the wings, I'll probably start him right behind the striker, because he's been pretty effective. And I think one of the games, I think the first game he came off from the bench after his long absence, he played right behind the striker, and he was really, really effective over there. So if we want to throw a bit of a juggle of how people are going to play against Forest, probably use that. Play Jadon Sancho right behind Anthony Martial. Play Pellistri and Anthony on the right and left, or Elanga and Anthony on the right and left.
Pellistri is a player we haven't mentioned in regards to he was one of the subs. He came on, escaped. Look, I've sort of tried to wipe the performance from my memory. I don't forget if he did well or didn't do well, but it's one of those ones in terms of he's escaped all criticism. I'm not saying he deserves criticism, but we'll focus on all these other scenes. Anthony Elanga, Weghorst, Lisandro Martinez, Erik ten Hag. Pellistri was on the pitch when we conceded the 2 goals. I'm not saying his fault, but he's a name he just sort of went under the radar this morning or last night in the UK. But just about wraps it up, Vin. Just before we do sort of hang up the call, any sort of anything tickle your fancy in regards to last night or Erik ten Hag or the weekend or anything Man United in general, or in the live chat if you are with us in the live chat? Any other sort of questions / topics before we do wrap it up for the evening?
I kind of had a knee-jerk reaction after the game, where I kind of questioned the tactics of the Sevilla players lifting Lisandro Martinez.
Yeah, I saw you say that. Tell the list, because I see it and agree and don't agree. Tell us what you're thinking.
The thing is, so here is how you look at it, right? They are Argentinian players, fine, so they might probably get away with it, but then you don't see that often happening. You don't see that at all. And you see, when it comes to how Sevilla is, how Spanish teams are, they are opportunistic. They are, they play a bit dirty, dirty as in, I wouldn't call that as non-professionalism. It's like they play with a bit of street smartness, right? And that's something that was missing. And when I replayed and when I started looking at the whole scenario, he went down and Acuna was not closer to him, came rushing, probably of concern, or probably he knows, none of the United players are closer to Martinez right now. So let's take this moment, let's use it to our opportunity, lift him off and get him to the sidelines where he's eventually going to be stretchered off, and he'll be heading back to the dressing room or anything of that kind. The other thing is, like, if that would have not happened, just imagine like the physios coming in, we would have received 2 or 3 minutes. We could have had that time to regroup. Ten Hag would have passed more messages, had asked for the defense to regroup, defense to pay more attention, clear the balls, don't give them space, because Sevilla at that point of time was really in a momentum. They just scored the goal like 5 or 6 minutes, or probably even less than that. And I don't see it. Argentinians friendly. Sorry, I mean they are a friendly bunch, but
I can
hey,
see it. You use the word opportunistic, and I see it from that sense. But I also look at maybe the connection between the players. The one I see in terms of maybe you remember people might have the visual in their sort of memories is Mark Noble at Upton Park against Ander Herrera. Ander Herrera was time wasted. Mark Noble picked him up from behind like a bear hug and literally carried him off. That was one get off the pitch, we want the game to continue sort of thing. This Sevilla one, you could drop a scenario where they're trying to hurry up the game and get one of the players off the pitch. But ultimately, I think that might be a little bit of that. But in regards to the result of it, I don't think it impacts anything. But I don't think he was going to go off anyway.
Buts, right? It's if and buts. It's like I'm really scraping how we could have avoided certain things. It's again, it's if and buts would have all the right outcomes that we needed, then it wouldn't be a game of football. But yeah, that's what one of the other things. And the other thing is like, if I wouldn't have let or I wouldn't have foreseen letting your opposition players taking your player, be the first guy to be next to him, and then lifting him off and putting him away. I would have.
Did Lisandro Martinez go down and then the goal happened? The first goal happened?
No. I think it happened after the second goal, if I'm not wrong.
When was I've got my timeline mixed up.
After the first goal. It happened after the first goal, not during the first goal. It happened after the first goal because the first goal was the cross to which Malaysia clear, and it went off. But was
that? I have a feeling I'm probably wrong. I said I've tried to wipe this whole match from my memory, but my guess was okay.
Yeah, there you go.
George saying Martinez went off 87th. Okay, so
and they scored on the 82nd, I guess, 82nd or 83rd.
Oh, they scored earlier than that. Okay, yeah, interesting. I do remember him going down. I just remember it was a weird situation. Yeah, maybe as to why my gut was telling me that our players weren't around him because they were sort of getting the ball out of the back of the net, sort of thing. They were in a different position to the Sevilla players. But
no, it's and even I looked at the images. Maguire, Casemiro, everyone was there, and they are looking somewhere else. They didn't know what had hit them. They didn't, because till that time, I was really hoping, we are getting a clean sheet out of this game and 2 free goals. What are the odds? Oh, there you go.
Here's a question. Maybe George has the answer. So, George, give us 30 seconds before you throw the answer in. A quick one. When was the last time we scored 2 own goals in a match? George, if you do have the answer, do let us know. Maybe hold off 30 seconds. I'll have a think about it.
Must be a Phil Jones or a Chris Smalling one, for sure.
Phil Jones. I don't think Phil Jones ever scored 2 own goals. I'll definitely remember that, but I'm not sure when that one. I obviously remember my famous one is obviously Jamie Carragher back at Anfield when we wore that navy blue kit. I do remember that one where he scored 2 own goals against United. George goes, I've got no idea if the answer. There might not be an answer. Obviously, Phil Jones does spring to mind. I'm trying to think.
Well, Eric Bailly scored 1.
He scored 1 every week. I remember Rio Ferdinand scored a horrible one away at Fratton Park away. He sort of slotted past Edwin van der Sar away at Portsmouth, but that was a 2-0 defeat. I don't think he scored the second own goal. I'm trying to think. Look, a good trivia question. If anyone does find the answer, got too much time on their hands and can research it, feel free and do tag us on social media.
Yeah,
just comment here from Andy before we do wrap up. Good to see you, mate. For me, it might be worth resting the entire team and play the kids away in Sevilla. We'll have the rest of the team for the FA Cup semi, and then if we lose, Sevilla would be back playing once a week. A lot of people would share that view. For me, no. Well, I understand we're closer to the trophy in the FA Cup. It's only 2 games compared to the Europa League. Is a lot more games, potentially a trickier path to the final. But it's European football. There's a trophy up for grabs. I think the last time we played the kids, we lost to Astana. I think if you play the kids away in Sevilla, we're going to lose 10-0. So I do agree with the sentiment, but for me, you do have to go and do your best to win it.
Sorry, but is it the Premier League against Forest and then the FA Cup, then the Premier League, then the Europa League, right? We are not playing Seville next week. We are playing...
No, Seville should be next week. There's so many games. There's so many games. It used to be a 2-week break. I'll bring up the fixtures here. I've got them just in front of me. It used to be like a 2-week break in European football. But now, just look at the fixtures here. Yep, Forest and Sevilla next Friday morning for us. So I've got Premier League against Forest, Sevilla in the Europa League, Brighton in the FA Cup.
We're playing on the Monday. Okay. All
And
right.
then obviously the next Premier League game after that will be Spurs, which will be a huge game. I think we've still got to play Chelsea, hasn't been rescheduled. But that Spurs match, we looked at the Newcastle match has been pivotal. Another win for Spurs. Obviously, they'll catch up and we won't have played the Premier League the week before in regards to our match against Brighton being a cup game. That's a big one. So, look, make sure you do stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed. Hit the notification bell so you do know when we do go live. It's on a little bit impromptu tonight. We weren't supposed to go live, but obviously a little bit more therapy on a Friday night. And obviously the Eric Ten Hag press conference, we're all online, sort of scrolling through Twitter. So I thought Larry's out. Larry's still sleeping off tonight, sleeping off this morning. So thought Vin on take advantage of it and just have a good old chat. But do appreciate everyone in the live chat. Do appreciate Vin joining us. And we'll be back. There'll be no sort of specific Nottingham Forest preview. We'll sort of touch on it enough today. We'll be back. It's Monday morning, I think, a 1 a.m. kickoff or 1:30, unfortunately. So let's not pencil in a live reaction post-match. Let's pencil the match review on Monday night, Australian time, Monday morning in the UK time. So hopefully see you all then. Enjoy your weekend. And please do leave a like on the video on your way out. And we'll chat to you next week. Cheers.
See you guys.